I'd like to welcome each one here this evening for our October 2nd council meeting. I'd like to begin by acknowledging that the land on which we gather is the traditional territory of the Nishnawbe, Ottawa, and Mississauga peoples. Confirmation of the agenda that the Council of the Township of North Huron hereby accepts the agenda for October 2nd, 2023 council meeting as presented. I have a mover, Councillor Van Hitterson, Councillor Whitfield. All in favor? Carried. Disclosure of pecuniary interests?
Go
ahead.
Yeah, I have a conflict of interest on the rezoning of on the agenda of 7.1.1. Please like to note to the clerk that I may have wrote down 1.1.2 in mistake. It's 1.1.1. If you would make that correction for me, I made that in haste. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, 4, this is public comment time. This is an opportunity for members of the public to speak to any item of business on the agenda, 2 minutes per person. Like, you come up to the microphone out front here, give your name, an item of business, and if someone has made the comment already, we ask that you don't repeat it or have a different response, okay? So is there anybody from the public that would like to make comment? Go ahead, sir. Come on up front.
You can probably hear me from here, I think. Can you?
Just if you want to come up to the microphone for the live stream.
Didn't work the last time.
That's unfortunate.
Oh, I gotta be on camera. That's My name is Dean Walker, 335 Dinsley Street, Blythe. I'd like to ask a couple of questions. I thought Hannah was going to be here today to answer some questions, or not? Hannah Holman? But anyway, my first question is, after this meeting to pass for the rezoning of the Blythe property, what's the next step after that?
Point of order.
So I guess through your worship, so for clarity, so this is an opportunity for public comment, so it's not a question and answer, but Planner Holman does have a presentation as agenda item 7.1.1 regarding this matter, and I'm sure she'll explain the.
So no questions, okay. The other thing I would like to state is that well, that's be a question. Supposedly there was a dump or nuisance ground on this property before, the property in question, and I wondered if there was an assessment on that and what the results were, and if I could get a hold of that. The third comment I would like to make is that we're in the midst of, with advice from our lawyer, of preparing a memorandum that would state that we think there should be at least $50 million put aside if and when the water situation is going to cause flooding in my property, several other properties, and if we have to upgrade the water system, the water storm system in Blythe, who's going to pay for that? The taxpayers? Thank you.
Thank you. Would anybody else like to make a comment at this time? Seeing none. Consent agenda that the Council of the Township of North Huron hereby adopts the consent items 5.1.1 to 5.1.2, and further, that the Council of the Township of North Huron hereby receives consent items 5.1.3 to 5.3.4 for information. Do I have a mover and a seconder? Then I'll ask Deputy Reeve, Councillor Wright. Would anybody like to pull anything? Seeing none. All in favor? Carried. Public meetings, hearings and delegations. At this time, I'm asking Shannon McGavin of the Well Community Collective Youth Wellness Hubs come forward, and she has a presentation at this time. I ask her to come up on the stage, please.
sorry. Yeah, okay. Okay, good evening. It is our pleasure to be here. Reeve Heffer, Deputy Reeve Falconer, counselors, and North Huron staff. My name is Shannon McGavin, and I live in Huron East, and I have taught in Brussels and Wingham, and since retiring, I now work with the Knowledge Institute and the Ontario Ministers of Health and Patient Family Advisory Council, and I'm the Executive Director of the Well Community Collective. This is Patricia Smith, and she works and volunteers with the Well as well. So I won't read the land acknowledgement, but thank you for reading that at the outset. This evening, our invitation to you, Reeve Heffer and team, is to see the Well Community Collective as a key service collaborator to meet the needs of the youth mental health and substance use challenges in our communities of Blythe, Whitechurch, Belgrave, Wingham, and everywhere in between. The overall mission, when the Well started in 2021, was to work with communities, families, providers, and youth to co-design and collaborate to provide equitable, low-barrier services for youth across Huron-Perth and Grey and Bruce. We all know that Grey Bruce, Huron-Perth youth ages 12 to 25 are struggling in our rural areas. And now as we progress and we continue to collaborate with communities, it is important to note that we are working with Grey Bruce and Huron-Perth as separate identities. They're separate in terms of funding allocations, community health stakeholders, but similar in the rural design of mental health and addiction services for youth. I won't go through all of the Well values, but I want to point out two really important ones. Youth engagement and community collaborations. We do nothing for our youth without youth working and with our Youth Action Council and our Family and Community Advisory Councils. And the second piece is transparency. It is critical to us to be transparent and show good stewardship of all funds raised for the Well, and as such, we are a not-for-profit, and our team of 5 works voluntarily to collaborate with communities, and before we accept any funds, we are now working with the Sunset and Stratford Perth Community Foundations to act as flow-throughs for the public funds. So, why do we need mental health and substance use supports? The data is clear. As Dr. Joe Henderson said, our system is inefficient and it is unresponsive. Next one. Again, the data speaks for itself. I'm not going to go through all of these, but you can see here that 42% of our youth from the Ontario Student Drug and Use and Mental Health Survey said they had no idea where to go for supports. Again, the barriers for youth in our area include extensive wait times, navigation, and the 18-plus age youth seeking care as they age out of child services and into services that don't address youth needs. I have provided a list of gaps and ways that we can fix this system. However, in all honesty, it is simply one thing. It is providing the right kind of services at the right time by the right provider in the right place. And so how do we do this? The answer is utilizing the evidence and measurement-based service model of youth wellness hubs. A youth wellness hub is co-designed with rural youth and communities to provide a one-stop shop for youth aged 12 to 25 to walk in, not waiting, and to receive evidence-based care. They are not a drop-in center, they are not a youth group, and it's not the connection center that is specifically created for adults. Overall, these are evidence-based centers that focus on youth. They are designed for youth ages 12 to 25. They support youth mental health and substance use, but they also support youth with primary care, food insecurity, housing concerns, employment, and educational supports. They are open 12 to 8 p.m. to allow youth to access, and they are staffed by local youth-friendly intake coordinators and clinicians, allowing youth to come in for everything from in between snacks to actual crisis clinical interventions. Again, the 3 areas of focus are mental health and substance use, primary care, education, employment, housing, and food insecurity. And they are surrounded by skills and well-being services that provide youth with preventative and earlier intervention skills before they are in crisis. Again, the data speaks for itself. It's important to know that the Waihu model is not designed by me. This is not something I started. This is supported by research from CAMH. And in addition, throughout stakeholder collaborations, we continue to have weekly conversations with the headquarter team at Youth Wellness Hubs Ontario, who's supporting this work, and we are closely working with local child and youth mental health and substance use providers, as well as educational partners, employment, and housing partners to support this initiative. Lastly, the key benefits for our youth in our rural communities includes, this is created for youth. It specifically serves youth needs, and they support youth with services that no other agency is currently providing. Instead, this is an integrated youth center that provides youth with one door and access to many services specifically designed for youth. On this brief roadmap here, you can see we're at the collaboration, funding, and fundraising. This is after 2 years of co-design and co-engagement. And here's just a look at a few of our community collaboration events that we've done over the last 2 years. And I guess what's next? So our ask to you is, Reeve Heffer, Deputy Reeve Falconer, and counselors is, are you in support of the youth in our communities as they struggle with mental health and substance use as we move forward with this initiative? And how can you help? Thank you for considering our request. It's been an honor to be here to share this with you tonight. We are looking forward to hearing from you.
Okay. Thank you. Thank you, Patricia and Shannon, for your dialogue to us. At this time, we'll take any counselors, any questions of the presentation. Go ahead, Deputy Reeve, please.
Thank you. Through you, Reeve. Thursday last, I had the ability to have a conversation with the Connection Center in town here, because I had one of the same questions as you brought up there, that of not being youth connected. They assured me that their door was open to everyone, that they didn't. It wasn't by age, as you mentioned there. I just curious if you've been in contact with them in town
Yes,
to see
for
if any
sure.
of the
Yeah, so
facilities-
can I answer that?
Sure.
Okay, so we work with Catherine Hardman, who is the executive director or the CEO now of the CMHA. And it is technically 18 and plus, so the door is open for everyone. The very distinct difference is that's designed for adults. So adults, it's very adult friendly. So a youth friendly service looks very different. You won't find video games in there. You won't find youth friendly snacks. You'll find, and it's just a different, nothing that they've set up is specifically designed for youth. So it's very, very different. A lot of research has gone into this, specifically from the research at CAMH to say, we know what youth friendliness looks like, and we know how to make sure that youth will have access to this. So this is a place where youth will go.
I have a follow-up question then. The other connections that you've had, that you've stated here, the Huron Perth Mental Health and Addiction Services providers, the Huron Perth Auxiliary Services, the YMCA, CSA Public Health, school boards, Rotary clubs, are there some of those are more specific right to youth, as in the school board where they have counselors involved? Are you indicating that they're falling short
Absolutely
of their
not.
mandate, or
100% not. And I hope that's not what I was articulating. It is actually addressing the gaps. So we know that they are over, there's way too many youth right now. There's way too many youth seeking services, and they can't meet the needs. And so we're just simply trying to close some of those gaps. So right now, there's a 6-month waiting list at Huron Perth Center, and Dana would tell you that. At Huron Perth Center. So we know that they're unable to meet the needs. CMHA is unable to meet the youth need, especially because they're 18 and plus. So they're not even really addressing the 18 to 25 gap in care. There's a lot of research around that transitional aged youth where they literally fall off the map because they don't fit adult services. So how do we support that? But in no way are we saying that there's just not enough. It's just there's too many youth that are struggling right now. And these are early intervention and preventative services where youth can go. And so they offer all of those other big services, but they also offer the skills and well-being where they're hearing it. They might have an arts course, but they're talking about mental health and sort of early preventative ways to support them as they're going. So I hope that answers your question.
Yep. One more, and I'll be
Go
done.
ahead.
With this initiative, I'm presuming that you've gone to other municipalities and asked them for their. Can you tell our council what their response was, or what they're pledging?
I'm assuming. The only other council that we've actually, it wasn't a deputation, we met with the, I'm not going to remember his name off the top of my, North Perth. Do you remember? If you think of it, let me know. And their immediate response was, can you take funds? And we said, no, not right now, because we don't have the community foundation set up. So we won't take any funds because we are volunteering until the community foundations are set up so that they can act as a flow through until we actually have our governance table set up. So people are interested. We have different areas asking if, like, providing a location. We have a church in Exeter who's said, we'll pay for your location. You find people to work through in this hub and we'll pay for your location. So it varies, and we don't have a specific ask. It's sort of whatever works for you. I hope that answered that question.
Okay, thank you.
Any other counselors? Go ahead, Counselor Wright, please.
Yeah, thank you, through you. And I just wanted to say, certainly strongly support this initiative. I think it is a gap that needs to be filling. I just think that from a municipal standpoint, it's maybe a bit better to let it maybe get the plan a bit more fully developed and then come back with a specific ask,
Absolutely.
right? Because, you know, we could say, hey, we could find a location for you, but maybe somebody else has a location in town and things like that. So it, you know, maybe this is a good first step from an awareness standpoint, and then
Absolutely.
maybe when things get a bit further down the road, we might be able to fit a specific niche.
For sure.
Just my thought anyways, Reeve.
Can I follow up with?
Go,
Can I-
oh, yeah, sorry, go ahead,
All right.
Shannon.
I was just going to say, and I appreciate that, absolutely. I think for us right now, because it's a governance table where so many stakeholders are sitting and we're kind of trying to find the best space and where it will be and what it will look like, and we have youth supporting and parents supporting, it is sort of still up in the air. But then perhaps maybe if someone was interested from the council, they could sit on our governance table or the steering committee if they had such a desire to see how it's going, where we're going, sort of because people will put funds into that table to sort of push the initiative along. So perhaps that's an option as well.
Counselor McBurney?
Yeah, through you, Reeve. I sit on the Community Safety Wellbeing Plan Oversight Committee, and we're at the point right now to get the education out there, whether it's webinars, and we've picked a few topics, and there's quite a few stakeholders in that one as well. So with that opening up, that would open up to the public as well. We're part of the lower tier, so it's mandatory we get involved with all this to help out.
Yeah, and we'd be happy to present to that table as well. We are doing that in Grey Bruce currently.
Okay.
Any other comments from counselors? Okay, well, thank you very much, ladies. Appreciate your
Thank you. We sincerely
work you
appreciate
put
the
in
opportunity.
towards that.
Oh, Patricia. I can't get it.
I can't see it. Well, it's gone off the screen.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
7.1.1, pre-zoning proposal at 309 King Street, Blythe zoning bylaw update. At this time, I'll ask Planner Holman. She has a presentation to come forward. Thank you.
Thanks, Council, for having me this evening. I'm just going to bring up my presentation. So as mentioned by the Reeve, this item is to bring back the pre-zoning proposal for 309 King Street in Blythe. So just some background, as council's aware, the township is currently conducting a township-wide review of their zoning bylaw. As part of that, there was an evaluation of pre-zoning opportunities on large residential future development properties. So this would include properties that are currently designated residential in the official plan, such as the subject lands, and that are currently vacant greenfield larger properties. And so at the previous council meeting in July, council provided direction to circulate a notice to members of the public advising of this potential pre-zoning, to gather comments from members of the public, and then also to hold a public meeting, which was done at the last council meeting on September 18th. So just a refresher of the subject lands. So they are designated residential in the current North Huron official plan, and council will recall there was a review of the official plan last year, and those lands were residential previous to that last review. And then the lands are also currently zoned FD, future development, which is often used as a placeholder type zoning for these large vacant parcels that have yet to be developed. The landowner's agents have provided correspondence as reattached to the council agenda, outlining their potential options for future development and their intentions to do residential development on the site. And in consultation with them, staff had proposed the attached zoning bylaw. So just a refresher of the pre-zoning approach and the purpose of it. So historically, the practice has been for these large undeveloped parcels that are already designated for specific land uses, such as residential in the official plan. The common practice would be for the applicant to rezone that piece of land at the time a proposal is brought forward. So at the time of a plan of subdivision or a plan of condominium, for example. And then often these lands have been zoned FD, future development, which is often kind of a placeholder zone until there's a specific proposal for a specific type of residential use. An alternative option is to pre-zone the lands for a certain density or type of residences or dwellings ahead of the land being proposed to be physically developed, and a lot of the technical details being worked out through the plan of subdivision, plan of condominium, or site plan control process. So the purpose of this is partially to provide direction as to the potential future uses on the property, with the understanding that more details will be provided in another application, and hence why staff have proposed that a holding, so that's that -H symbol, be applied to any pre-zoning on the property. So that holding prohibits any development or building on the property until such time that is removed, and the expectation would be that that would not be removed until all the required technical materials and studies were received. So that's something, I guess, for council to be aware of, is that a lot of those details and the technical materials, it would certainly be the expectation that those would all need to be addressed before actual physical development can take place. But in terms of the pre-zoning, it's staff's opinion that there can be some direction provided to what type of residential use would be permitted there, with the understanding that these details would be worked out in the later planning approval. So in particular for this property, because of the size of it, it is anticipated that they will do a plan of subdivision application, or they could potentially do a plan of condominium application depending on the tenure that they want for the units, but discussions to date have been for a plan of subdivision. So that's typically where a lot of those technical details get discussed, because there'll be a lot more direction on what the lot fabric will look like, if there needs to be a stormwater management block, for example. So that's just some background on the purpose of the pre-zoning. In terms of the site-specific proposal, it is proposed that a portion of the property be rezoned to residential low density, so that's that R1, and then a portion be residential medium density, so that's that R2. And the thought with that is the current developer just wanted some flexibility to have the option for either low density or medium density, with the medium density being on the northern portion of the property, but in that medium density also permitting R1 uses. And then the purpose of the special zones was also to specify specific direction for this property. So I'm just going to jump ahead to this later slide. So it does speak to the holding symbol not being able to be removed until related planning applications are received and processed. So that would be a plan of subdivision, a plan of condominium, and then for the R2 zone, also site plan control. So that's typically an application that we would see if there's an apartment building, for example. So it speaks to that, and then it also speaks to sufficient servicing being available. So that would be water, sewage, and stormwater management. And require technical materials and studies at the time of application. So that's something planning staff and then township staff, and then also the township's engineering consultant, we would work with the applicant to determine which studies are required, some of which I am aware that the landowner has done or is in the process of doing, but again, those haven't been received or reviewed in detail for the rezoning. And then, as mentioned before, just going back to the other slide, staff are recommending that there be an inclusion of a holding symbol, and this is an appropriate use of that. This is just a refresher of the potential uses that would be proposed in the R1 and then the R2 zone. So this reflects the current proposed uses in the R1 and the R2 zone as per the general review of the zoning bylaw amendment. So generally in the R1, a lower number of units, so single, semi, duplex, row house to a maximum of 3 units, triplex, quadplex. And then the R2 also allows those R1 uses, and then a row house, so like a townhouse dwelling with no unit limit, and then what we're calling a multiple unit dwelling, but that could be considered an apartment building to a maximum of 3 stories. So this concept plan was provided by the landowner's agents for information to give some sense of what they are potentially considering for the property. Council should note that the proposed zoning does not provide direction on the proposed lot fabric or the placement of the lots or the road allowances. That will be considered at a later time during the plan of subdivision or plan of condominium application. Again, this is just provided for some context for the potential options on the property, obviously subject to further review and technical materials. In terms of the planning evaluation, my report does go into greater detail on this, but zoning bylaw amendments are to be reviewed against the provincial policy statement and then the county and North Huron official plans. As mentioned before, the lands are designated residential and in a primary settlement area in proximity to other services. So this is typically where you would direct any new residential development. So in that sense, it's considered appropriate. And then also to the North Huron official plan does provide policy direction for providing a mix and range of housing types, so different dwelling types. And the R1 and the R2 are considered appropriate for that to provide some flexibility. The North Huron official plan also does outline some measures for compatibility between varying housing densities. So in particular, consideration of the location of the R2, including methods that we can implement through site plan control if there's a higher or a medium density proposal. And then the official plan also speaks to compatibility studies for neighboring industrial uses. So it has been identified that for the plan of subdivision application that the applicants will need to do what's called a compatibility study. So that's sometimes referred to as a D6 study based on provincial guidelines. So that's also reiterated in the official plan, and they would be expected to demonstrate that. The OP also provides direction for implementing development standards for servicing stormwater management, traffic, and general compatibility. And then the North Huron also does have more detailed development guidelines separate from the official plan. And the official plan does speak to how this can be considered at the time of land division, so plan of subdivision or other planning applications such as site plan control. And it also outlines that the use of a holding can be used as a placeholder until such time technical requirements are addressed. And then the official plan provides policy direction, and then the current proposed updates to the zoning bylaw allow stormwater management facilities in any zone. So that does provide them with some flexibility as they still work out the details of if they need a stormwater management block, where that would be located or the appropriate size for that. So in terms of comments, the notice was circulated to landowners within 120 meters of the subject lands. So that's in accordance with the Planning Act direction. Council has received any written comments from members of the public, and the landowners' agents have also provided written comments, and then council will recall that they also received verbal comments at the public meeting on September 18th. In terms of a summary of the concerns raised, so my report provides more commentary on the most common concerns raised by members of the public, but again, the full comments are provided for context. So concerns were raised regarding drainage and stormwater management, infrastructure and servicing, and traffic, environmental impacts, general compatibility of the R2 zone, road access and sidewalks. So in terms of the first few points, again, because they are more technical engineering related matters, as I said before, they have not been assessed in detail at this time, with the expectation that those details would be reviewed at the time of plan of subdivision, plan of condominium, or site plan control, or removing of the holding. So it's staff's opinion that direction on the zoning of the land in terms of what uses may potentially go there is not premature in absence of this. But it is also worth noting that it's been identified that the applicants will do a traffic impact brief. And then they will also do a functional servicing report, which will outline more details on water, sewage, and then stormwater management. In terms of the environmental impacts, the feature on the property is not regulated by the Conservation Authority, nor is it identified as a significant natural environment feature based on our guidelines. But it is worth noting that if there are species at risk that are encountered through construction or site alteration, then it would be the expectation that the landowner would need to conform with applicable provincial or federal legislation regarding that. And then my report speaks further to the general compatibility of the R2 zone. So in terms of the recommendation, it's the staff's opinion that the zoning bylaw amendment is consistent with the provincial policy statement and conforms to the county and North Huron official plans. It's recommended that council approve the proposed zoning bylaw amendment, and then also, depending on their decision on this amendment, a second motion will also be needed to indicate by resolution the effect of public and agency comments on the decision. So at that time, I'm happy to provide more direction. So available if there's any questions.
Okay, thank you very much, Hannah. At this time, I'm going to ask council members, do any of you have any questions for Hannah at this time? Go ahead, Councillor Wright, please.
Yeah, thanks through you, Reeve. I guess my question is, so when they do in the future, when they do the plan of subdivision, and then they have to do the technical studies on that plan of subdivision, like stormwater, do those technical studies just look after what is going on within the boundaries of the plan of subdivision, or does it take into account the effects of neighboring properties as well?
Yeah, so through the Reeve, it would depend on the study. So a compatibility study between industrial uses, it would obviously specifically consider the impact of any neighboring industrial uses. Something like stormwater management, it would certainly have to consider the surrounding area and what the potential impacts would be on neighboring properties. That would be the expectation, that they would look at it more holistically and not just what's on the subject property. Other studies, it has also been identified that they need to do an archaeology assessment and then what's called a record of site condition. So that's due to the previous uses on the property. So that'll look at like the soils and potential for contamination. Those are studies, for example, that would only concern the subject property. So it would depend on the study.
Okay, thank you. And go ahead, Paul.
So then the plan of subdivision, so once the technical studies are done, obviously they have to be accepted or approved before the plan of subdivision would go ahead. So just lead me through what is that process? Who does that review? Who does the approval? Who says, yeah, the stormwater management system is going to be designed sufficiently before the plan of subdivision is approved?
So through the Reeve, so what would typically happen is the applicants first, the burden of proof is on them, where they need to do the work to do the technical studies, and then they would come forward to the municipality or the county when they submit their plan of subdivision with those studies. And then as part of the review process, and in particular related to stormwater management, is the township utilizes BM Ross as their consulting engineer, as essentially the peer reviewer on their documents. And then we would rely on the input from BM Ross. So in that case, they may say their proposal is acceptable, or they need revisions, or it's not acceptable. And then my recommendation is the planner would be informed by what those comments would be to BM Ross. So typically, if there's a disagreement, that's something we would work through with them, or that would be something that would be presented to council. And then there's also an option, typically with a plan of subdivision, you initially get what's called draft approval. which means it's provisionally approved, but you have a series of conditions that you need to fulfill. And then often at that time, the conditions are doing a lot more of the detailed engineering in terms of how you would actually construct the infrastructure and then actually constructing that before the lots are created and then the building permit is sought before final approval. So that's the typical process.
Any other comments from councillors? I'd just like to reiterate there, you mentioned many times through your report there, the holding symbol, and then what it all alludes to, and I think that's where we heard a lot of complaints coming our previous meeting, and I see that's all going to be covered if that holding symbol means nothing's going ahead till everything's looked after, and I really like to see how you brought that forward. Go ahead.
Through you, Reeve, in regards to getting BM Ross involved, and if things weren't kosher, so to say, who pays for that? Is that on our dime?
Through the REEV. So typically in the past with other development applications, it would be the township would have cost recovery where that the review cost incurred by the township by BM Ross would be paid for by the developer as the applicant.
Okay, you're fine with the answer there, Councillor McBurney? Okay, no other questions from councillors? Seeing none, the council of the Township of North Huron hereby approves the zoning bylaw amendment as it applies to Plan 170, Park Lots 2 to 5, Park Lot 1, Blythe Ward, Township of North Huron, 309 King Street. We have a mover, and it's Councillor Van Henderson, Councillor Wright. All in favor? Carried. Okay, we'll carry on to motion number 2 now. That the zoning bylaw amendment, 309 King Street, pre-zoning as it applies to Plan 170, Park Lots 2 to 5, Park Lot 1, Blythe Ward, Township of North Huron. The effect and public agency comments. Hannah, please.
Yes, thank you. So it is recommended that council select option 5A for the effect of public comments, that public comments were received on the issues of drainage, servicing, infrastructure, environmental impacts, and type of residential uses. These comments were thoroughly considered, but the effect did not influence the decision of council to approve the amendment. And that with respect to agency comments, that option B2 be selected, that no agency comments were received on this amendment, so there was no effect on the decision.
Okay, thank you. I have a mover and a seconder. Councillor Wright, Councillor Whitfield. All in favor?
Can I just speak to it first?
Oh,
Reeve?
sorry.
Yeah, so, I mean, I just think that there's an opportunity here, right? So I think, I've certainly heard the concerns of the residents, but I see this actually as an ability to improve the infrastructure in the area. It does seem to be lacking, specifically from a stormwater standpoint. So, I think there's an opportunity here for win-win, that, we can improve the infrastructure in the area and eliminate some of the ongoing issues that are happening there. And certainly I think we'll all be on edge to make sure that we're looking at these studies and be convinced that the developer would make the area better for neighboring properties before we would approve any plan of subdivision.
Duly noted. Okay, all in favor? Carried. (7.1.2). I'll ask Hannah to give her presentation now at this time, please.
So this presentation is just, again, on the general township-wide zoning bylaw review. So the purpose of this is to present a recommendation on the amendment for the general review of the North Huron zoning bylaw. So the public meeting for this was also held on September 18th, and there was direction to bring this back with a recommendation at the next meeting. The following is just a refresher of the project timeline. So again, it was initiated in February. We did have public open houses in April. And then throughout the summer into the fall, council did receive various versions of the draft and update reports. And then on September 18th, there was a public meeting to receive comments. So just a refresher on the highlight of the text amendments, and again, council has seen this previously in other drafts. So options to provide additional residential units in agricultural zones and residential zones within the main building and accessory structures, expanding permissions for on-farm accommodations and diversified uses, updating residential definitions and permitting supportive housing in all zones, updating the framework for residential housing on full services to provide to permit a wider number of units as a right in the low, medium, and high density zones, updates to parking requirements at one space per residential units, and flexibility to allow off-site parking subject to site plan agreements. And then throughout the bylaw, removal of references to limiting distances and minimum floor areas with the approach to rather rely on direction in the Ontario Building Code. So in terms of the map zoning amendments, one of the big changes was implementing the natural environment agricultural changes in the rural areas following the review of the official plan last year. Implementing the updated flood hazard mapping in urban areas in consultation with the Conservation Authority, cleaning up of any existing special zones that are deemed inoperable or redundant, further mapping changes considered pending consultation with landowners. So this also speaks to the pre-zoning that was also considered as part of a separate bylaw. More information on wellhead protection areas in the appendices, and then inclusion of Conservation Authority notification areas and adjacent lands as an overlay on maps for reference, and then also for clarity with members of the public. So there have been some changes to the last draft that was received at the September 18th public meeting. So in particular, as mentioned before, staff did review any redundant special zones that existed in the current bylaw in consultation with landowners. And then in particular, we have had an opportunity since then to consult with the landowner at 410 Shooter Street in Wingham, which is currently a vacant property that right now is zoned as a special R3 special zone. That was placed there historically in 2006 for a very specific condominium apartment style proposal that was never realized, and the current owner has no plans to move forward with that specific development. So it is recommended that that special zone be removed, and then as a result, it continue to be zoned R3, but also have a holding so that it can be considered in greater detail when a proposal is brought forward. Staff have also modified the county housing parking requirements. I have further discussion in my later slides just in response to some council comments. And then in accordance with council direction at the September 18th meeting, staff have updated the mapping changes to reflect, to remove any site-specific natural environment zone changes on those 11 properties that have objections from landowners that we went through in detail on September 18th. So just for council's clarity, the bylaw is attached to this report, and then at the end of the agenda, the maps reflect that direction by council. And then any general formatting, grammatical errors throughout the bylaw. So in specific to the county housing parking requirements, this was something council requested further information on. So initially it was proposed that there be a general provision to reduce the parking requirements to 0.25 spaces per dwelling unit for any county housing operations. And there was some concern that may not reflect the different nature of the county housing needs in terms of parking. So what staff found when we investigated this further is that certainly parking needs do vary across county housing operations, and it's often related to the unit type. So family units will typically have more parking spaces versus, bachelor units, for example. The intent with this was to avoid any excess land being utilized for parking spaces that may not be fully utilized. But upon reflecting on this, staff have revised the amendment so that the reduced parking, instead of applying generally across the township, recognizing that the township does host a number of county housing sites that have different needs for parking, that this be applied to the 359 Edward Street site, which currently has 2 existing spaces for 11 units, and clearly has demonstrated a lower demand for parking than perhaps some of the other sites. It's also worth noting this site is identified in the county's renewal plan. So the intent of this renewal plan is identifying any opportunities for potential redevelopment or intensification of existing county housing sites. So the amendment has been updated to remove general provisions, and then specifically just adding it to the otherwise proposed special zone for the county housing site. So at the end of my presentation, happy to answer any further questions by council on this, but that's what staff's recommendation would now be, that it just apply to this site. Council also provided direction on September 18th in regards to objections from landowners about proposed zone changes in areas that were existing agricultural zones that were proposed to go to natural environment areas on 11 properties by 3 landowners. So we did go over that in detail on the 18th. And as per this direction, the mapping has been updated to reflect council's direction in the bylaw. But with that, staff continue to maintain their position that these features should be zoned natural environment. And as the planner, I'm not able to support the exclusion of these areas. And so my report and my recommendation reflects that, and just concern for not being consistent with the provincial policy statement or the county and North Huron official plans, evidence of the natural features being present, potential inconsistency with the land use designations of the official plan that was updated, and then also potential misunderstanding of other applicable law, including the county forest conservation bylaw, which is a separate applicable bylaw. So that's something we also wanted to clarify, and that's something we will communicate to landowners, hopefully for their own benefit, so they understand the difference between the 2 processes. So my recommendation does reflect that that I'm maintaining this position. So the proposed amendment, notwithstanding the natural environment zoning on those 11 properties being excluded, is consistent with the provincial policy statement, conforms to the Huron and Township of North Huron official plans. As such, it is recommended that the proposed zoning amendment as attached, again, except for the exclusion of those natural environment areas, be approved. So if council would like different direction from that, that's something they would need to provide direction on with respect to the first motion there. You will also need to indicate by resolution effective agency public comments, which I can provide further commentary on once there's more direction on the first motion. And then also, there's also a further motion needed by council, which indicates that because the public meeting notice was sent out well in advance of the September 18th meeting, and at that time there was an amendment posted that had that in detail, but since I've outlined in my presentation, there have been some changes to the amendment since the public meeting. Under the Planning Act, there needs to be direction from council that a further general public notice is not required in this case. So that's what that third motion speaks to, but it's also worth noting for council's understanding that a notice of, if council decides to make a decision on this, a notice of decision will also be sent out as a separate notice, but there's a general public notice is not additionally needed. And it's staff's opinion that those changes are minor and don't warrant a further circulation of the notice, sorry. So I'm happy to answer any questions that council may have.
Thank you. Any councilor members, could we maybe have the lights if? Yeah, thanks. Okay, are there any questions from council this time? Okay, Clerk Lamb would like to.
Yeah, so just to clarify, so council's aware of the recommended motion before you. So as Planner Holman noted, in her professional capacity, she can't recommend that you exclude the proposed natural environment related zone changes for those 11 properties. So if you want to continue with the direction you provided at last meeting, you'll need to amend this motion. So the motion would be that the Council of Township of North Huron hereby approves the general zoning bylaw amendment as presented. If you wanted to reverse that direction, then because the bylaw already incorporates those changes, we would look for an amended motion when we got to agenda item 10.2 to reflect that. So hopefully that clarifies, but you'll need to amend one of the motions regardless, depending on what direction you go on.
Thank you. So I'll read our first motion is that the Council of the Township of North Huron hereby approves the general zoning bylaw amendment as presented, with the exception of the exclusion of proposal natural environment related zone updates on 11 properties with objections. You have a mover and a seconder. Deputy Reeve Faulkner, seconder. Councillor Wright. Okay, go ahead.
Nope. So you'll call the vote for that one.
Okay, I'll call a vote for this now at this time. All in favor? Carried.
Yep, so that now is the next one, your effective public and agency comments on the decision, but just to reiterate, because you passed that motion, then we'll amend the motion when we get to the bylaws section.
Go ahead, Count.
So it is recommended that option A5 be selected, that public comments were received on the issue of zone changes to natural environment. The comments were thoroughly considered, but the effect did not influence the decision of council to approve the amendment as originally proposed to include the areas of objection in the natural environment zoning. And then agency comments, it's recommended that option A3 be selected, that agency comments were received and supported the application, the effect of which resulted in a decision to approve the application.
Okay. May I have a mover and a seconder? Mover, Councillor Wright, seconder. Councillor Whitfield? All in favor? Or any questions first, sorry. All in favor? Carried. Now we're going on to the next motion, motion number 3. Whereas the Council of the Township of North Huron has held a public meeting pursuant section 3412 of the Planning Act with respect to the proposed zoning bylaw. And whereas certain changes have been made to the proposed bylaw after the holding of the public meeting. Now, therefore, the Council of the Township of North Huron hereby resolves that pursuant to section 3417 of the Planning Act, RSO 1990 CP 13, the changes were of such a nature that no further notice is to be given in respect of the proposed bylaw prior to its passing. May I have a mover and a seconder, please? Councillor Whitfield, seconder, Deputy Reeve Faulkner. Any comment? All in favor? Carried. Thank you very much, Hannah. Okay, 7.4.1, BE 2023-05 Dog Tag Administrative Services, DocuPet. At this time, I'll just ask, does anybody have any questions for Director Furtney at this time?
I have a question.
Yes, go ahead.
I would like Director Furtney to explain why this would be a better use of our resources than using the dog tags. I would like to abandon the dog tags at all, but apparently that is not possible through municipal legislation or provincial legislation. I think dog owners should be more responsible. There's microchipping right now, but people can put things on the collars from their dogs. So, and I would like some explanation about the one-time fee and how the municipality can guarantee that more people will pay their dog fees.
Okay, thank you for your question. At this time, Mr. Fortney, please.
Good evening, members of council. Certainly, there's no guarantee that dog owners or more dog owners will go after these licenses. However, it is definitely a struggle. This whole program seems to be a struggle, not only for our municipality, but many other municipalities as well. And although we were not asked to bring this report to council, we have been doing some research because we saw that there are many folks who do not buy their annual dog tags. We felt that this might be a cost-saving measure and a time-saving measure to bring to council as an option. Certainly, if council wishes to continue status quo or wishes to do some other direction, we'll certainly take that direction. But this is just an attempt at trying to, fix a problem that we see happening around us. DocuPet manages about 180 municipalities in North America doing this service. They boast about an 85% rate of dog tag licensing revenue. We would still collect our revenues through this program, so we would not be out revenues. The $2,500 fee is a one-time fee. It's a 3-year contract with 2 options for 1 annual renewal, and so up to 5 years. There's a little bit of front-end administration work that we do as a municipality have to provide. However, they take it over from there. They provide all the notices, and the way that they get paid is they get paid through upselling dog tags as well as paid advertising. So that's how they get paid through this process. So like I said, this is just an opportunity. I know the town of Minto has been doing it. They signed up last year. There aren't any in Huron County. I come from the Niagara region, and I know all the municipalities in the Niagara region have come on board with this particular opportunity. Again, this is just an opportunity for us to look at. You folks did not give direction for this to come forward, but we were just trying to help with some costs and some additional labor going forward. So we will do as council's wishes.
May I follow up?
Yes, go
Yeah.
ahead. Follow up.
I know there is right now an enormous amount of administrative challenges within all the departments in the municipality. How can this DocuPet firm make sure that even if there's a dog brought to the pound or brought somewhere, that the administrative burden on the municipality is less? If they only supply the administrative part of it, the dog tags. I don't see the advantage of, there's 12, so far this year there are 12 animal concerns issues in the municipality. So that's not too much, but it is, I find it, the connection between the dog owners and the municipality and DocuPet is not really established for me.
That's an excellent point. We do have approximately 900 dog tags annually that we deal with. Our collection rate for dog tag revenues are low. They could be better. There's a hope through this program that if a dog owner does sign up through this process, that they are really in tune with such a program and would like the additional perks and so forth to go with it. As far as dogs that end up going to the pound service, for whatever reason, the connection is if the dog is licensed through the DocuPet system, then they track everything. If there's a microchip, the age of the dog, the kind and type of the dog. And then we are still very much connected to DocuPet and the owner of the pet. It's just that it's more online. The process is a little bit more streamlined. And if there is an animal control issue, our actual bylaw officer would have access to the program, and they would be able to identify the dog if it was chipped or tagged properly through the system.
Any other? Go ahead.
Yeah, would people who are not really good with internet and people who don't have internet still be able to do this program through the municipality?
Yes, we would still be able to do some of that or all of that work through the municipality, should they not be willing to sign up with DocuPet.
Yep, thank you.
Deputy Reeve, please.
Yes, through you, Reeve. Currently, the establishing of dogs' information through the microchipping, is that information not available to the vet to download and to find out the owner? That the way it is currently now, if the dog was presented to the, or Pound is basically our veterinarian services, are they unable to track that chip now?
Through your Reeve Heffer, yes, sir, I believe they can.
So the information that is already available through the chip, through the veterinarian, that would be available to the bylaw officer, either through the veterinarian now, or it would be through DocuPet. Like, it seems to be a doubling of resources if we are already able to do that now.
So through you, Reeve, to Councillor Faulkner. Not all animals are chipped, unfortunately. There's not near as many as the animal industry would like. This is, again, just an additional option. No one can be forced to chip their pets. Nobody can be forced to tag them without consequence. And the only way to do that is to catch them and try and gather that database, which this software will do. And it'll also allow field staff to have that database with them via tablet or cell phone while they're out in the field as well. As for the animal owners, if their animal does go missing, they can actually report it through the website, so that if the animal is tagged and identified, that animal owner will be identified the location where their animal has been taken to as well.
Thank you.
Any other questions from anyone? I guess I read in your comments there, Director Fortney, I just see we're down at 40% and they have a saying that they can get it up towards 85%. To me, that's a win-win, and if it can save staff time, that's what is that worth now? And especially as we're coming up to budget time and just things that we have to come up with, I just see some positives in there too, that maybe all of us weren't just quite looking at some of that. Yeah, any other comments from people? Okay, where am I? Okay, B, yep, that the Council of the Township of North Huron hereby receives a report from Director of Public Works Facilities dated October 2nd, 2023 regarding an agreement between the Township of North Huron and DocuPet for dog tag administrative services for information purposes. And further, that the council agree to enter into a 3-year contract with DocuPet for dog tag administrative services with the option of 2 additional 1-year terms. And further, that the council agrees to pay an initial one-time fee of $24.99 plus applicable taxes with no subsequent fees, subject to the township choosing the 365-day licensee program option. And further, that the Director of Legislative Service / clerks prepare an amendment to the bylaw number 88-219, the Animal Control Bylaw, to recognize the use of DocuPet services to the Township of North Huron. May I have a mover? Deputy Reeves, seconder. Councillor Wright. Are there any other questions before we go to vote? Okay. I'd like to see a show of hands. Those in favor? Carried. 7.5, Fire Department. 7.6, Office of the CAO. 7.61, CAO 2023-2022 Fire Agreements, 1-year extension request. Are there any questions for CAO Evans with this? Oh, seeing none. That the Council of the Township of North Huron hereby receives a report of the CAO dated October 2nd, 2023 regarding the fire agreements with Morris Turnberry, Central Huron, and Ashfield, Cobourg, Wawanosh. And further, that Council agrees to extend the fire agreements with Morris Turnberry, Central Huron, Ashfield, Cobourg, Wawanosh for 1 year, subject to all 3 municipalities agreeing to the same. And further, that the council direct staff to commence fire agreements, negotiations with Morris Turnberry, Central Huron, and Ashfield, Colborne, Wawanosh in the first half of 2024. May I have a mover? Councillor Van Henderson, seconder is Councillor McBurney. Are there any questions for CAO Evans at this time? I know I've already asked that, but nothing came through. Okay, all in favor? Carried. Correspondence, 8.1, Wingham Business Improvement Area Letter Request to rename section of Municipal Park, that the Council of Township of North Huron hereby refers the correspondence from the Wingham BIA staff to investigate the request and prepare a follow-up report for council's consideration at a future meeting. May I have a mover and a seconder, then I'm going to ask if we could ask Mitch Wright if he was at the BIA meeting, if he wanted to say anything at all with this. May I have a mover? Councillor McBurney, Councillor Whitfield, Councillor Wright, would you like to share anything?
Yeah, I will do. Thank you, Reeve Huffer. Yeah, so just some context about this. You know, the BIA is doing the benches project this year, and we are kind of scouting around for other projects to do in the future. Certainly the Vance family was a fixture of the downtown core in Wingham for many years. And we think it's just generally not well known, you know, how generous their trust fund is to North Huron. And so we kind of kicked around several ideas of a good way to memorialize the family, and we thought this was a good idea, right? We have Crookshank Park downtown, and you know, that everybody knows who Doc Crookshank is, and we felt this might be a good way. And kind of as a side note, I think we have the longest riverside park in Ontario because no one really knows where that park starts and ends. So it's certainly open to renaming a section of park after the Vance family.
Okay, we had a mover and a seconder. Any other questions? All in favor? Carried. Thank you. Council reports. I just have a couple things there. Friday, we had the opening of the Connection Center up here. Again, MPP Lisa Thompson was there, and they gave a nice gift to them, and so that was really, they're really thankful for that. And then through the week there, we had emergency management annual exercise at the Blythe Arena, and Deputy Reeve was there. Maybe he'll have something to share with it. It's a mandated, we have to do that once a year, and I'd rather do it that way than experience it. So it's a real eye-opener, but just seeing all the people that we can work with if something ever did go wrong. And as you see the news, you see where that happens quite frequently. Okay, that's all I have. I have verbal or written updates from members who sit on boards or committees. Anybody? Okay, we'll go to Anita first.
Oh, okay, thank you. I have an update from the Physicians Recruitment Committee. The Teeswater Clinic is nearing completion. Physicians hope to be in by the end of January. The hospital was a really busy place over the summer with nursing and physician students at various years of medical study. There's still 30 nurses on leave of absence. Mat leave nowadays is 12 to 18 months, and most of them take 18 months because it's so hard to get daycare. The Hospital Foundation is starting the process for acquiring and fundraising for a CT scanner. Ms. McCaig is a member of the Southwestern Region Group of Recruiters, and they are targeting international students from Canada that work in Australia, Ireland, New Zealand, and they are hoping that those students, that they can enhance them and attract them to come home, and that would solve the physician shortage in Canada. So imagine how many people from Canada work outside or international. Maitland Valley Conservation Authority organized a tour and a meeting from representatives from Huron-Perth Health Unit, Minister of Health, Minister of Agricultural, Food and Municipal Affairs, local veterinarians, Wildlife Conservation Society of Canada, and representatives from the University of Guelph. They were learning about healthy environments, forests and watersheds, and what they can do to improve the water quality, our physical and mental health, and how important it is to start a working group with those representatives to work on the water quality and the soil quality for our land. The demolishing of the old barn at the nature center will start this week. Some of the old materials will be used in a new picnic shelter that is going up next year, so that will be really nice. The North Huron North Perth Family Health Team is rebranding. They are doing new colors, a new website, modernizing. Website is almost ready. It's very user-friendly. It's the name is now Listowel, Wingham and Area Family Health Team. Mid-October, flu and COVID vaccines will be available for the highest risk groups. The family health team is always trying to get everybody a physician's appointment as soon as possible. And the way they're doing it right now is separating urgent from emergent care. And also that's very important to relieve pressure on the ER. And they, right now there are many second or third day appointment available for people who don't need emergent care. So, and that's also through the help of nurse practitioners. That's
Thank
it
you,
for now.
Councillor Van Henderson. Councillor Wright, please.
Yeah, thank you, Reeve. So just kind of a couple public announcements. So just a couple things that came up with the BAA. So the Ironmen are celebrating their 50th birthday on October 14th. So it's quite a milestone. There is all kinds of activities planned at the arena on that day. So for those of you that weren't aware, it might be worth checking that out. And also the Festival of Lanterns is coming up on October 27th. It's the Friday before Halloween again. And they're kind of back in full swing. They're going to do the lighting of the lanterns at the town hall. They have going to have an apothecary set up, a fortune teller, kids and pet costume competition, and art in the park. So again, should be worthwhile checking that out. Thank you, Reeve.
Thank you. Anybody else? Okay. Comments by members?
Yes, please.
Go ahead, Councillor Henderson, please.
Thank you. The Belgrave Community Board had their annual general meeting, and during that meeting they always have the Jim McGee Volunteer Award. It was this year awarded to Larry Robinson, and he was very honest. Larry was is a pillar in the community, and it's yeah, he was very honored to receive this award, and it's very nice. It was a nice meeting.
Thank you. Okay, 9.4, notice of motion. Seeing none. 10.1, bylaw number 7023, zoning bylaw amendment, 309 King Street, pre-zoning. I have a mover. Councillor Van Henderson. Councillor Whitfield. All in favor? Carried.
So this is 71 will be the one that needs
Yeah.
amended.
Okay.
So based on the direction provided by council during item 7.1.2, your amended motion would be as follows. That bylaw number 71, 2023, being a bylaw of the Township of North Huron to amend bylaw number 82, 2008, being the North Huron zoning bylaw, be introduced, read a first, second, third, and final time, be signed by the Reeve clerk, and be engrossed in the bylaw book, subject to the amendment to the natural environment mapping as directed by council during agenda item 7.1.2 at the October 2nd, 2023 regular council meeting.
Okay, may I have a mover? Councillor Whitfield, Councillor Wright, all in favor?
Can I ask a question
sorry.
first? So I just want to clarify, so the way that was worded, those 11 properties are exempted from?
The way that is worded, the natural environment mapping as directed by the planner will be what is approved.
Okay, so I would like to amend that motion that those 11 properties with objections be exempted from
So
natural environment.
you've already decided that in 7.1.2.
Oh, we did, okay.
That they.
So you're just repeating that?
Well, yeah, so basically what the decision you made during 7.1.2 was to agree with the recommendations of the planner. which means because she, in the bylaw that's here, it included the recommendations you wanted to see last time. Now you have to amend this motion because what you decided during 7.1.2 was opposite of what you decided last time. So now those 11 properties that objected to the natural environment mapping, the natural environment mapping would occur on those properties.
Okay.
Right, and so I want to amend the motion 10.2 in order to remove those properties from the natural environment mapping.
And I guess because, so council already decided on that matter during 7.1.2, so you would need to
voted on that
reconsider
already.
that previous decision.
No, but, sorry, I'm confused, because I thought when we were at that, you said if we wanted to change it, we would have to make an amendment in 10.2.
So if you wanted to change the planner's recommendation, you needed to adopt it as presented, so you would need to change the motion then. But since you did not change the motion then, you need to change the motion now. Because the way, what's presented in the bylaw section, it incorporates the changes that council asked for last time, but the motion you passed in 7.1.2 was the planner's recommendation to not include that direction.
Okay, so I'm having a hard time following this. If we pass 10.2 as it's proposed to those 11 subject properties, does the natural environment mapping apply to those properties or not?
Yes, it does.
Okay, so then what would I have to do at this point in time in order to have those exempted from
So then you
natural
would want to
environment mapping?
reconsider the previous direction you provided as part of agenda item 7.1.2.
Well, I'm just going to ask what other councilors feel, because I thought it was worded that if we wanted to address this, it was supposed to be addressed now, not at the time. So maybe that was my mistake. I don't know if any other councilors had the same opinion or impression.
Go ahead, Councillor Whitfield.
Through you, Reeve, I also feel the same. I was confused on, I thought we were exempting those at the time.
Those 11 properties you're saying.
Yeah.
Just bear
Yeah.
with me for a sec. Go ahead.
Well, so I guess if that's what you would want to do, you would need to pass a motion to reconsider as a starting point, and then your next item of business would then be to deal with that previous direction again.
Deputy Reeve, go ahead.
Yeah, there was two possible outcomes from the 7.1.2 that Hannah presented, and the first one was what we wanted, what we presented or asked the questions to Huron County to look into the objections from the homeowners on those 11 properties, and that motion could have got passed to maintain though that first motion that we passed. She brought her answers to the questions that we asked and presented her proposal going forward on those after relooking at those properties again. So she did what we asked, and then she proposed the outcome, and we voted on on that proposal. So if we voted if we would have voted to object to her recommendations, then we wouldn't need to amend the motion, because the motion was already written the first way we had it, but we voted to amend it to accept her recommendations. So that would have been the point to say, no, I would rather have the first motion voted on rather than and object to her. And so we've gone through that process at the first point. You still have the ability to bring forward a motion to rescind or relook at this motion, but the motion as amended, was passed by council at that first vote.
But I'm just confused because at the time our clerk said, and I forget exact wording, but alluded to the fact that if we wanted something changed, we would have to do that in 10.2. So-
Right, so through your worship, because the planner in her professional capacity cannot recommend that you disregard the natural environment mapping changes to align with the provincial policy statement and the forestry bylaw, her recommendation was that you approve it as presented, subject, except with the exclusion of those natural environment changes. So what I had said was, if you want to have the previous direction you provided from the last meeting, and I guess, for lack of a better way to put it, disagree with the planner, then you needed to make an amendment during 7.1.2. But because you, as council, did not make an amendment and agreed with the planner, it means you have to amend the bylaw that's before you now, because that bylaw does incorporate the feedback you provided from the last meeting, which was on the, basically to exclude the natural environment for those 11 properties.
I need a flow chart.
And it's, I guess the confusing way it's set up like this is because unfortunately in the planner's professional capacity, she can't recommend, she has her professional capacity recommendation that she has to make versus what council has previously provided direction on.
Okay, so if we wanted to exempt those 11 properties, step one would be to make a motion to reconsider, right?
That's correct.
We would vote on that, assuming that passed. Then we would make an amendment, or we would select a different option in 7.1.2.
So if you were doing a motion to reconsider, then your next item of business would be, technically be revisiting 7.1.2 and providing different direction there. Because I don't know if you, just, so there was the three, the two motions there. So the one, I guess, yeah, so it might potentially change the second motion, which was your effective public and agency comments on decision. So those recommendations from the chart. So you'd want to reconsider the motion, I guess the first motion from 7.1.2, and then work your way through there until you've addressed that. Then you would move back to the bylaws section.
Deputy
Through
Reid,
your-
please.
Rescinding a recommendation from Huron County and the planner on the ground, on her grounds that she doesn't have the doesn't have the capacity to change Ontario land laws, as these are being changed all over the province through the initiative of the province. I'm not sure whether reopening it against the county's wishes would just put us in a dilemma, because then we would then be responsible for any outcome on the decision on those properties that goes against Huron County's recommendation, which is mandated by the province. I'm just curious as to what we could actually really do, and whether this council wants that responsibility.
So, yeah, I guess through your worship, and I believe Hannah's still here, if it's of assistance, to bring her back up. But, yeah, I guess disregarding the recommendation of the planner, if it was appealed to the Ontario Land Tribunal, the planner would not be able to support the municipality in regards to that recommendation, because it would be going against the advice of the planner. So, and Planner Holman's here if you want to elaborate on that.
Yeah, through the Reeve, I think Carson summarized it well, is if council has a difference of opinion in terms of what they decide from the planner department, as Carson said, if there is an appeal, then as the county planner, I wouldn't be able to support that position. Oh, sorry, I apologize. I'll repeat that again, just so everyone can hear that. So occasionally when council does disagree with the county planner, in those instances, if there is an appeal lodged, then the county planner just wouldn't be in a position to represent the township, because they have a different planning opinion on that matter. So as Carson mentioned.
Deputy Reeve, please.
Through you, Hannah, does the applicant then have the right to go to the land tribunal? Or is there another mechanism that the landowner can initiate to have that changed?
Yes, through the Reeve. So as part of the current review, the landowners that did provide comments and objection, they will receive what's called a notice of passing, and that will outline their opportunity to appeal to the Ontario Land Tribunal. So there's that option. And then alternatively, they have the option to apply themselves for a zoning bylaw amendment. So that's something they can apply for on their own.
Okay. Any other questions for Hannah? Okay, seeing none. Oh, go ahead, Councillor Wright.
No, I don't have another question, sorry.
okay.
But I was just gonna, I guess we'll start down the path and see if it works. And I'm doing this simply because I misunderstood personally
Yep.
the way I
You
was
know it.
voting in 7.1.2, so I'll make a motion to reconsider 7.1.2.
Yeah, that's basically what the motion would be, reconsider the decision of 7.1.2.
Okay, at this time, do you have a mover and a seconder, please? Councillor Whitfield, seconder?
Oh, so you have a mover in Council Wright and a seconder, Council Whitfield.
Okay, now we can go for.
Yep, so now you put it to vote.
All in favor? Defeated.
So based on that direction, so then the previous direction you provided in agenda item 7.1.2 would stand, which means that, again, your motion that we're looking for now would be that bylaw number 71, 2023, being a bylaw of the Township of North Huron, to amend bylaw number 82, 2008, being the North Huron zoning bylaw, be introduced, read a first, second, third, and final time, be signed by the Reeve clerk and engrossed in the bylaw book, subject to the amendment to the natural environment mapping as directed by council during agenda item 7.1.2 at the October 2nd, 2023 regular council meeting.
I had a mover and a seconder already.
Well, so that motion was withdrawn, so you're,
So, okay, I need a mover and a seconder. Deputy Reeve, Faulkner, seconder. Oh, Councillor McBurney? All in favor? Defeated.
How the hell does that work? Sorry, comment.
Go ahead.
So, council's voted yes, defeated a no motion. Council's already voted yes on the first motion that passed. A rescinding motion failed, and now council has chosen to fail the original that they voted yes for. So either they're in contradiction to your first vote. I don't get, I just don't see how a no vote can come from a yes vote to a defeat to a not passing the bylaw we've already voted yes on.
through you, your worship, Deputy Falconer is correct. Basically, if council wanted if council wanted the natural environment mapping excluded, or if they agreed with the objections, then you should have passed the motion to reconsider, and that was defeated. And then council has also just defeated the bylaw to include those natural environment mapping. So you've basically provided two separate contradicting directions. So I guess at this point, unless my recommendation would be that council does not necessarily seem ready to make a decision on this, so you might want to defer the matter to the October 16th council meeting.
All right, okay. Would a polled vote?
So you need a motion on the floor in order to conduct a vote.
I put a motion to vote to revote with a recorded vote. That then adds the Reeve. I don't know whether that would make any difference to the vote, but it would to the count, but not to the.
And so what is the motion that would be a recorded vote?
Well, the only other option I have is to request a recorded revote on the passing of the bylaw that was already voted yes on in the beginning. All that does is initiates the Reeve to have a numbered vote on the outcome. Whether that would change the outcome, I have no idea, but it would change the amount of people voting on it.
So I believe since I was in the majority of the way 10.2 went, I could make a motion to reconsider that vote, right? I think that's the way that works. And then if that motion to reconsider is passed, then someone could ask for a recorded vote.
I guess, so
make
you have
sense?
two different directions
two
being
different-
provided. So you want to deal with the one proposed motion first, and then depending on what happens with that, then you'd move on to the next motion. So Deputy Falconer has requested a recorded vote, and that was of the vote to align with the direction from 7.1.2, correct? That's my understanding? Okay, so again, the motion on the floor would be that bylaw number 71, 2023, being a bylaw of the Township of North Huron to amend bylaw number 82, 2008, being the North Huron zoning bylaw, be introduced, read a first, second, third, and final time, be signed by the Reeve and clerk, and be engrossed in the bylaw book, subject to the amendment to the natural environment mapping as directed by council during agenda item 7.1.2 at the October 2nd, 2023 regular council meeting. So you have Deputy Falconer as your mover, and you're looking for a seconder.
Need a seconder at this time? Councillor Van Hitterson?
Okay, again, so that is a recorded vote, so I'll now, unless there's any further questions, I'll call the vote. Okay, so Deputy Falconer,
Yes.
Councillor McBurney,
Yes,
Councillor Van Hitterson,
No.
Councillor Whitfield,
Yes.
Councillor Wright,
No.
and Reeve Heffer.
Yes.
So that motion carries 4-2, with the noes being Councillor Van Hitterson and Councillor Wright.
Just to make a comment, through you to council, this in no way limits the ability going forward for amendment to the assessment on the property. The owner has every every opportunity, once he receives the decision from the council, has two different paths that they can take, as far as I believe, as far as getting it re-examined. But in both those cases, it doesn't involve council or the responsibility of council onto amending a provincial legislation or initiative. If it goes to the tribunal, then council has nothing to do with it. It takes the liability away from council. So there's not saying that there isn't other ways to change it. It's just it doesn't involve the council from that point forward on.
Okay. Now we'll move on to number 11. Announcements. Thank you, Hannah. Announcements. The next regular council meeting will be held on Monday, October 16th, 2023 at 6 p.m. in North Huron Town Hall Theater. A special council meeting, year-to-date meeting, will be held on Friday, October 20th, 2023 at 9 a.m. in the North Huron Town Hall Theater. The next Wingham BIA Board meeting will be held on Thursday, October 19th, 2023 at 6:30 in the Hot Stove Lounge at North Huron West Cass Community Complex. And the next BIA Board, Blythe BIA Board meeting will be held on Thursday, October 26th, 2023 at 8 a.m. at the Blythe and District Community Center. Are there any other announcements? Seeing none? No closed session. Conformatory bylaw by 14.1 bylaw number 72, 2023 conformatory bylaw. May I have a mover and a seconder? Councillor Wright, Councillor Van Hitterson, all in favor? Carried. Adjournment. That the council of the Township of North Huron agrees that there being no further business before council, that the meeting be hereby adjourned at
7:35 p.m.
7:35. May I have a mover? Counselor McBurney, seconder. Counselor Van Hitterson, all in favor?